round the harmonised natural minor and harmonic minor scales and commenting on how the chords on these scales are used in songwriting. It's quite likely that I've given you a somewhat confusing view of the subject so far. Now, in a way this has been deliberate, because the way this subject is normally taught in a kind of historical context is confusing. And I wanted to work through these confusions first, really, to sort of get them out of the way. It's particularly confusing if all you want to learn is modern songwriting. In this, the last of the mini-series, last lesson in the mini-series on minor keys, we are, I'm afraid, going to have to explore this confusion a little bit further initially, but then I'm going to show you a nice, neat, effective and practical way of summarising all this knowledge and, most importantly, making it usable. We're going to start by looking at the third most commonly discussed of the minor scales, the melodic minor scale. Now, talking of confusion, if you've studied this scale in a music lesson or at school or at college, you've almost certainly learned the form of this scale that comes from classical music. And it's unique in the sense that it's the only scale I know of that has a different path on the way up to the one it takes on the way down. So we have an ascending melodic minor scale and a descending melodic minor scale. Sounds like this. As the descending scale is identical to the natural minor scale, I hope you spotted that, in this lesson we're only going to concern ourselves with the ascending melodic minor scale. And this is often referred to as the jazz melodic minor, and it has the simple formula flat 3. So here you can see the melodic minor scale in A minor. Notice that the 6th and 7th notes retain the sharps from the A major key signature, but that the 3rd note, C, is natural, as the formula requires us to flatten the 3rd, which of course would normally be C sharp in the key of A major. When harmonised, this scale keeps the chords from the harmonic minor scale for the 1st, 3rd, 5th and 7th degrees. But it provides us with a B minor instead of B diminished for the 2nd chord, a D major for the 4th chord, and an F sharp diminished for the 6th chord. So between the 3 different minor scales we've so far discussed, I count a total of 14 different chords that result from the harmonising process. But in practice it gets worse than that, because songwriters are also prone to use the 2 remaining chords, in the key of A that would be F sharp minor and C sharp minor, that result from harmonising the major scale and aren't included in any of the minor scales. Now, when we're discussing a major scale that has the same key note as a particular minor scale, you'll often hear us use the term parallel minor or parallel major scale. So you could say that the palette of chords from which songwriters select chords to write in minor keys includes all of these. Chords that are diatonic to the natural minor scale, the harmonic minor scale, the melodic minor scale, and the parallel major scale. This provides us with a bewildering array of chords, which when we put them all together look like this. I did promise you it would get more confusing. Now, when I sat down to try and sort out this mess, I began by taking a long hard look at what songwriters actually do with all these chords. Do they really use all these chords in practice? Now, I want to emphasise that for the purposes of this study, I'm restricting myself to all those popular songs based chiefly on simple triads and perhaps the odd seventh chord. When you get into the realm of jazz harmonisation, where chords of 4, 5 and even 6 notes are normally used, then I think we have to take a different view. I went over in my head all the songs I could think of in minor keys, including those that I knew were traditionally hard to analyse by conventional methods. And quite suddenly I stumbled on a pattern that I hadn't spotted before, or indeed read about anywhere. First, I wrote out the A natural minor diatonic series and colour-coded the chords green for those that are commonly used, orange for those that are less frequently used, and red for those I had never seen used. You can see that in the top line here. Under that, I added all the chords from the 3 other types of scale, harmonic, melodic and parallel major, again using the same colour coding, green for those in common use, orange for those less frequently used, and red for those I can't remember ever being used, apart from maybe as passing chords occasionally. In the bottom 2 lines, I've simply repeated the same chords but in generic form so that you can test this observation against songs in any key. Still looks too complicated though, doesn't it? So I went a step further. In a rare flash of inspiration, I realised that if you remove the red coloured chords from my diagrams, you can actually create all the remaining chords from just 2 scales. The natural minor scale and the parallel major scale. The resulting diagram has a rather pleasing symmetrical pattern. In essence, this pattern is saying that all of the chords harmonised on the natural minor scale are in common use, except the 2nd and 5th, which are normally replaced by the chords diatonic to the parallel major scale, A major in our example. It's also saying that the 5th chord from the series diatonic to the natural minor is used occasionally, as are the tonic, 3rd, 4th and 6th chords from the parallel major scale. Okay, so now let's test this against a couple of songs that hitherto I've always found resisted easy harmonic analysis by more conventional means. Here's Marvin Gaye's classic hit. Quite an extreme example really, in that only the key chord of E minor comes from the natural minor scale. The other 3 chords used in the song all come from the parallel E major scale. The tonal ambiguity of the sequence, the way it mixes both major and minor chords together, provides a really sort of bluesy effect. And of course, this very much suits the meaning of the lyrics of the song. Now, here's a song that I always struggled to remember the chord sequence of, simply because I didn't really understand it. This is Light My Fire by the Doors. Again, quite a leaning towards the parallel major palette here, with 4 out of the 6 chords used coming from the A major diatonic series and only 2 coming from the natural minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. This time you can hear how the minor sound that the song starts with is made all the more mysterious by borrowing the relative minor chord from the parallel major key. So that's F sharp minor being the 6th in the key of A major. Then as we shift towards the more positive, the more assertive lyric, Come On Baby Light My Fire, the use of the predominance of the chords from the parallel major scale help change the mood to match the lyrics. So both of these songs are excellent examples of strong chord sequences written to go with the meaning and the feelings invoked by the lyrics. Now, like all such elegant solutions to musical problems, I'm afraid that sooner or later you will stumble across some exceptions to this simplified system. So far, I have to say all the exceptions I've stumbled across are best solved by referring to the modes. But as the modes are a subject we're going to deal with as a sort of last step on this course, we'll save that for later. So, I hope you found this rather bumpy journey through the subject of minor key composition interesting. And I hope that you'll find my little discovery about the use of parallel major chords in minor key compositions at least a useful rule of thumb that you can apply to make learning songs in minor keys easier and more accessible. Now, in the next step on this theory course, we're going to be looking at the theory behind the pentatonic scales. So I look forward to you joining me on that.